A popular Nigerian proverb says, "The chicken that refuses to listen will learn obedience in the pot of soup." Mind you, this is not really about chickens. Amara and her mother, Obby, lived together in a simple part of Lagos. They were not filthy rich, but they lived comfortably. Obby was a young single mother in her early 30s and had given birth to Amara at a very young age. It was the most difficult period of her life, especially since the person responsible for her pregnancy was a young boy just the same age as her. At that time, they had just finished their O-level exams and were awaiting admission into the university. When Chidi's parents found out about her pregnancy, they quietly whisked their son away to study abroad, and she had not seen or heard from him ever since then. Obby was abandoned to bear the consequences of their actions alone. Her parents did not take the situation lightly. Every day was a nightmare for Obby. They constantly reminded her of her mistakes and rubbed it in her face every day and night. "You foolish girl, all you were supposed to do was to face your books and come out with good results. Instead, you came out with a pregnancy. Now, where is the one responsible for it? He has left you behind and gone to face his future. Shame on you, Obby. You are a disgrace to this family," her father spat in her face. Obby was hurt beyond imagination. She even thought about taking her life at some point, but the thought of the child growing in her womb stopped her. She was 17 at that time, and she knew that she had made a very big mistake, but she was bent on surviving no matter what. She endured all the insults hurled at her, the gossips, and the piercing eyes of the neighbors when she passed. At least, she still had a roof over her head and food to eat. After she had her baby, things did not get better. Her parents swore to never send her to school with their hard-earned money. "You have proven to us that you are a useless child. Instead of wasting my money to send you to school, I'll rather invest it in your younger ones before you come back with another bastard child," her father said to her face. At that point, Obby knew that she was on her own, and that if she and her daughter would survive in this world, she had to do it on her own. Her elder sister, Amara, who lived and worked in the city, was the only one who felt compassion for Obby. After Obby's baby was born, Amara, seeing all that her beloved sister was going through, decided to bring her and her baby out to live with her, since she was unmarried and lived alone. The gesture for Obby was like the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. Without wasting time, she took her daughter and moved to the city to be with her sister. When she got there, Amara helped Obby to get a job as a cleaner in a big primary school. The salary was not too much, considering her qualifications, but it was just enough to hold her together. Plus, the school enrolled her baby in their daycare facility for free. Amara registered Obby in a fashion designing school where she would learn the intricacies of dressmaking. And so, Obby worked during the day in the school, and on the weekends, Amara took care of her baby while she attended the fashion school. Finally, things were falling in place for Obby. Fast forward to the present. 16 years has passed. Amara, Obby's daughter, has grown up to be as beautiful as her mother. Obby had tried to get into several relationships since then, but they never worked out. She found it very difficult to trust any man, and after several failed attempts, she eventually gave up and decided to raise her daughter on her own. She now owned a thriving fashion business. Her shop was one of the biggest in the area, and she was so good that everyone wanted to be her apprentice. As a result, she had lots of girls and boys working and learning from her. Obby did her best to raise Amara right, but Amara grew up to be very stubborn. She wanted to do as she pleased, and anytime her mother tried to caution her, Amara would always banter words with her mother. Obby was not happy about this and had tried severally to talk to her daughter calmly, but all her advice fell on deaf ears. The one that worried Obby the most was when she discovered that Amara secretly had a boyfriend. And to prove her right, some women on the street had called her attention to it on different occasions, telling her how they see Amara at hidden corners with a particular boy. To make matters worse, the boy was not even responsible. He was very handsome and charming, but was always roaming the streets high on cheap drugs. This revelation not only worried Obby, it brought back memories she had tried so hard to forget. She had to do something quick before things got out of hand. After carefully thinking about it and organizing her words, Obby called her daughter one night. Mother and daughter sat facing each other. "I want to tell you a very short story," she began. Amara looked disinterested in whatever it was her mother had to say. She had the mindset that her mother hated her, and that was why she was constantly on her case. "Does it have to be this night, mother? Can't we tell this story tomorrow?" Obby shook her head. "No, it has to be done tonight," she said, her voice firm. Amara knew when her mother's mind was made up, so she had no choice but to listen. Obby told Amara the story surrounding her birth for the first time. "I'm telling you this story because I want you to be focused and not make the same mistake I made. I know about your escapades with that boy, and I will tell you this for free. It will not end well. Life is very tough on the streets, my child. Let no one deceive you. I am working so hard to give you the best life. Don't throw it away," she said, her voice filled with sadness. Amara, after hearing the story, looked at her mother, but remained unchanged. "I'm sorry to hear all that you went through to have me, but Nosa is different from my father. He loves me and I love him too," she said. "Stop there, Amara. 1. Nosa, or whatever his name is, does not love you, and you have no business with love at this age. What you need to do for now is to focus on your studies and not gallivanting all over the hidden corners of the streets with that riffraff who is way older than you," she said harshly, obviously losing her patience. Amara remained unfazed. "It's because you think every man is like my father. That is why you have remained alone." Before she could say anything further, Obby gave her a resounding slap to reset her brain. "Don't ever talk to me like that again," she said harshly. Amara held her singing face as tears filled her eyes. Without any more word, she got up and ran into her room. Obby could not sleep that night. She tossed and turned all night. She honestly feared for her daughter. She feared that her daughter would be caught up in the same mistake that she made years ago. Amara did not give her mother's words a second thought. She continued her sneaky life, and it even got worse. She started stealing her mother's money and sponsoring Inusa's addictions, and became more rebellious and hostile towards her mother. A few months later, trouble came knocking. Amara's body began to change. She started eating uncontrollably and sleeping just as much. She was barely able to do anything as she felt always tired. Obby came back from work every day to meet the house in total disarray, unswept, the dishes unwashed, and dirty clothes piling up unattended to. Amara was stubborn and rebellious, but she was not lazy. Obby knew that something was seriously wrong. She watched her daughter with the eyes of an experienced woman. The young girl, who was just 16, had no idea that something was happening to her. She had no idea what to do. What she feared the most had eventually come upon her. Obby did not say anything to Amara. She just casually asked her to escort her to see someone one morning. The young girl wanted to decline, but Obby persuaded her with a promise to stop at her favorite eatery. The thought of food was appealing to Amara, so she agreed to go with her mother. Obby drove straight to the hospital. "We are here. Let's go in." Amara looked at her mother surprised. "I thought we were going to see a friend." Obby managed a fake smile. "Sorry, I lied. You have been feeling ill lately. I know you are usually afraid of injections, so I cooked up that story. I want the doctor to check you out, but I promise not to let them give you any injections," she said. Surprisingly, Amara did not argue. She simply followed her mother into the hospital. Unknown to her, her mother had already made plans with the doctor to get her tested for pregnancy before any other thing. The unsuspecting Amara had her blood sample taken and waited patiently with her mother for the results. It did not take long before the result came out. To prove her suspicions, it came out positive. Obby felt the ground move under her legs. She had to sit down to save herself from falling. Her biggest fear had become her reality. "Get into the car," she said coldly to Amara. The drive home was the longest Amara had ever experienced. The air was thick with unspoken words. Her mother's eyes were bloodshot. She feared what would happen when they reached home. "What have I gotten myself into?" she said to herself. Obby was filled with rage, but managed to hold it in. Immediately they entered the house, the dam broke, and she exploded in anger. "You must terminate that pregnancy. I warned you, Amara. I begged you, but you did not listen. Now see." "Who is the father?" she barked angrily. "It's Nosa," Amara, who was already in tears, responded, her voice barely above a whisper. Obby's head was ringing. "What have you done, Amara? I did everything and gave you everything. What have you done?" Obby could not control her emotions. She left Amara and went into her room. She needed to think and clear her head. That night was the longest night of her life since after Amara was born. Obby could not sleep. Her mind was filled with the thought of what had befallen her. She started thinking if there was something she had done wrong. She needed to talk to someone, so she called her sister, Amma. Amma was shocked to hear the news. "How did this happen, Obby?" "I don't know," Obby cried. "I did my best. But maybe it was not enough. Maybe I made a mistake somewhere." "Stop beating up yourself," Amma said, comforting her sister. "It's not your fault. These children, especially teenagers, just do whatever they want, no matter what you do or how much you try. What we need to do now is to focus on damage control." After her conversation with her sister, Obby felt a little better, but it did not take away the pain she was feeling. Amma was right about the damage control. The only choice they had now was to terminate the pregnancy. That way, Amara could live her life. Amara in her room also could not sleep. She had gotten tired of crying and just sat there, staring at the ceiling. The thought of having this baby was scary, but the thought of removing it was even scarier. Maybe if Nosa found out, he would be willing to take care of her and the baby. She made up her mind to beg her mother to keep the baby and inform Nosa the next day. Very early the next morning, Amara went into her mother's room. Obby sat quietly on her bed when Amara walked in. She went and fell on her knees before her mother. "I'm so sorry, Mother. I know you are disappointed in me. I'm sorry I failed you after all you said and after all you have done to avoid this from happening. Please forgive me, Mother," she said, sobbing uncontrollably. Obby looked at her daughter, her eyes filling with tears. "The deed is already done, Amara. There is no point crying over spilled milk. All you need to do now is to control the situation so that you can move on with your life. Your admission letter has come already. And you cannot go to school in this condition," Obby said, her voice firm. Amara looked up at her mother. "You mean aborting this pregnancy?" "Mother, I'm just doing what's best for you. That boy cannot take care of himself. Talk more of taking care of you and the baby," Obby said, her voice icy. Amara shook her head. "Please, Mother, let me keep this baby. If you had terminated me, I won't even be here. I know it won't be easy for us, but I won't be able to forgive or live with myself if I did this. Or worse still, what if I died in the process?" Obby seemed to think about it for a few minutes. Then she took a deep breath. "Okay, you will have the baby on one condition. 1. You must return to school soon after you have the baby, and you will never, ever see that boy again." The first condition was fine with Amara, but the second one was impossible. It did not sit well with her at all. "Mother, but I love him and he loves me. I believe we can raise this child together," she cried. Obby laughed haughtily, clapping her hands. "You think motherhood is easy, eh? You want a man who is irresponsible enough to put an underage girl in the family way, drinks alcohol like it's water, and releases more smoke than an old truck's exhaust pipe. I will have him locked up for this, I promise," she said, angrily, standing up and sending one more look towards her daughter. "Don't push me, Amara. I am being really nice about this. Trust me." She walked out of the room and banged the door behind her. Amara sat at the same spot for a long time, lost in her own world. She had made up her mind. Over her dead body, would she let her mother put the man she loved behind bars? She would call Nusa and let him in on her plan. That same day, Obby came back home from work, feeling very tired. The house was thrown into darkness when she opened the door. Amara was probably asleep, she thought to herself. But when she put the lights on, she was met with a sight that caught her breath. The house had almost been cleared out. The television and sound system was gone. Her laptops were gone. She ran into her room. All her expensive jewelries and valuables, handbags, shoes were all gone. The 100,000 naira she kept in her bedside drawer was also gone. And so was Amara and all her belongings. Obby nearly ran mad. She had no idea where to begin her search. She checked everywhere for a clue, and that was when she saw the obviously hastily scribbled note on the dining table. It said, "I had to do this because I cannot watch you put the father of my child behind bars. I took your things as settlement for myself and your grandchild. You were able to raise me on your own. I'm sure I can do it on my own too. At least I have a man by my side." Obby angrily squeezed the letter into a ball and let it fall to the ground. She hardened her heart, refusing to give in to the tears that threatened to spill. Amara had made her choice. All her mother could do was to hope she did not regret it. Amara had planned with Nusa to steal her mother's valuables, which they planned to sell and start their new lives together. To avoid being traced, Nusa had to get a small one-bedroom apartment in another part of Lagos. The neighborhood was nothing like the one Amara was used to. It was dingy and smelly, but she would brave the storm as long as her man was by her side. As the days turned into months, her belly continued to grow. Her body continued to change, and so did Nusa. Nusa lived a reckless life. All the money they got from the sales of the jewelry and other valuables she stole from her mother, he had squandered it all on drugs and alcohol until they had nothing left. He had no job and made no move to get one. Life became really hard for Amara. Even eating was a problem. Luckily for her, she had hidden away the 100,000 naira she stole from her mother. That money was what she managed to get a few necessary items for her baby and sustain herself. When the baby finally came, she was alone. Nusa did not show up at the hospital for obvious reasons. He had no money to pay the bills. After spending 2 weeks in the hospital, alone and hungry, the doctor, seeing that nobody was coming to save the young girl, decided to have mercy on her and let her go. She got home with her baby to meet an unholy sight. Nusa sat on their tattered sofa, smoking marijuana, with 2 half-naked girls by his sides. Her head snapped. Nusa, So you abandoned me in the hospital, and now you sit there with those two things. Not once did you check on me. How can you be this wicked?" she said angrily, trying hard to hold back the tears that threatened to spill. Nosa made a gesture, and the two girls quickly wore their clothes and disappeared. He turned towards Amara, smiling charmingly. "Calm down, Ami. I knew they were going to release you if nobody came to see you. That's how it works." Amara shook her head in disbelief. "You are mean, Nusa. I had no food to eat. I was practically begging anyone I could for money to eat. And you stand here to spill this nonsense," she said, letting the tears flow. She finally understood what her mother had been saying all along. Nusa could never be responsible for anyone but himself. She realized that she had made a terrible mistake. As she sat in their small room with her baby, Amara thought about going back to her mother to ask for forgiveness. But she thought otherwise. "She would never forgive me," she said in her mind. The next couple of days were hell. There was no food to eat, and the baby could not stop crying because he was also hungry. If mother does not eat, of course, there will be no reasonable milk produced for the baby. To make matters worse, Nosa barely came home. He said the baby's incessant cries could not let him rest, and he needed the peace and quiet. Amara was filled with regret. She wished she had listened to her mother. Things would have definitely been better for her and her baby. Determined to find a way to survive, Amara started a roasted plantain business with zero capital. She collected 2 bunches of plantain on credit from Mama Ekene, who owned a big plantain farm, and sold plantain in bulk. With help from a few neighbors who pitied her, Amara started making and selling roasted plantain, popularly known as bole, in front of the compound where they lived. The business was going well. She was able to get enough money to feed herself and her baby, and even save up some money. When things seemed to be going well, trouble came again. Nusa developed the habit of taking her money every time. She would cry and beg him to stop, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. He used her money to fund his wayward lifestyle. No matter where she hid it, he still managed to find it. On top of everything, his womanizing reached its peak. Nusa chased everything and anything in skirts, and did not care if she found out or not. Amara got tired of complaining. She just decided to focus on her business and raising her son. She realized that all her mother said was true. Life was indeed very difficult in the streets. Amara was only 17, but hardship made her look way older than her age. When her son, Tobe, reached 9 months, Amara discovered she was pregnant again. This time, she was truly devastated. One child was already a problem. How was she going to deal with a baby and another pregnancy at the same time? Nusa did not seem to be bothered when she told him, which was typical, considering the fact that he did not even contribute to the care of the first one. Amara became depressed, and for the first time in her life, she actually considered taking her own life. For her, it was already over.
There was no way she could handle this situation on her own. Mama Orojo, an elderly woman who lived in the same compound as Amara, noticed the sudden change in her. Usually, Amara was not a happy person, but at least she smiled and greeted the neighbors when she saw them. But now, the girl had totally changed. She no longer even made her roasted plantains. Mama Orojo, with her experienced eyes, saw that something was deeply wrong, and so she decided to have a conversation with the young girl. She summoned Amara to her room one afternoon. "Sit down," she said when Amara came in, her voice filled with concern. Amara, uncertain as to why she was called, sat down facing Mama Orojo. The elderly woman cleared her throat and started, "My dear Amara, I know this may feel uncomfortable, but I want you to see me as a mother that cares about you. I see that you have become totally withdrawn lately. What is the problem?" Tears gathered in Amara's eyes. "There's no problem, Mama Orojo. I'm fine." "But there are tears in your eyes, Amara. How can you say that you are fine? Everybody in this compound is aware of your situation with that boy, Nosa. It's not new to us. But I feel your pain, Amara. Talk to me. What is going on?" In truth, Amara truly needed someone to talk to, and Mama Orojo seemed mature enough to understand her predicament. And so she opened up to the elderly woman, telling her the story of her life. "I've made a terrible mistake, Mama Orojo. Now I'm paying dearly for it," she finished, tears of regret flowing down her cheeks. The elderly woman comforted the young girl and encouraged her to go home to her mother. Amara shook her head vehemently. "I am pregnant again. She will never forgive me this time. I have messed up Mama Orojo. I have brought shame upon her," Amara cried, unable to control her tears. Mama Orojo looked at the young girl, who looked so lost and broken. "You have also learned your lesson. Remember the parable of the prodigal son. Go back home. That's the only way you can help yourself, and your son, and this unborn baby in your womb." After her conversation with Mama Orojo that afternoon, Amara sat in her room and thought about everything that had been discussed. She realized that Mama Orojo was right. Going back home was the only way to help herself. She decided to go back to her mother. If her mother rejected her, then she would know she had tried at least. She went back to Mama Orojo and told her about her decision to return home. The elderly woman was happy for Amara. She even gave her some money to add to whatever she had for her journey. One afternoon, when Nusa was not around, Amara picked up her few possessions and disappeared. She started her journey back home, her heart pounding sporadically as she approached her mother's house. Meanwhile, since her daughter left, Obby poured herself into her work. She kept herself extra busy to get her mind off things. She worried about her daughter day and night, but promised herself not to look for her. Obby left her shop that day very late as usual. Nothing prepared her for what she would find when she reached home. Amara sat on her bags in front of her mother's house. It was late and she had momentarily dozed off until she felt a hand tap her, bringing her back to reality. She opened her eyes to see her mother standing there as beautiful as ever. She suddenly became aware of her appearance. She looked unkempt. Her hair was a mess. She felt thoroughly ashamed of herself. Mother and daughter stood for what seemed like ages, staring at each other. Amara went down on her knees. "I'm sorry, mother. I regret all my actions. Please forgive me," she said in tears. Obby's heart melted. Seeing the miserable state her daughter was in broke her heart. She could not help but notice that the girl was pregnant again. "What happened to you, Amara?" Obby said, drawing her daughter to her feet, her eyes filled with sadness. Amara burst into fresh tears. "I learned the hard way, mother. I'm so ashamed of myself." Obby picked up the little boy who was asleep on a wrapper spread on the floor. "Come inside," she said as she unlocked the door. It was already late and Amara looked tired, so Obby let her eat and go to bed. They had a lot of talking to do the next day. Morning came with mixed feelings. After breakfast, mother and daughter sat down to talk. "What happened?" Obby asked. Amara told her mother all the gory details of the things she had passed through within the past 1 year and few months. "I wish I had listened to you, mother. Now I'm facing the consequences of my choices. Look at me, I'm 17, with a baby and pregnant for another. I've destroyed my whole life," she cried. "It's never too late to pick up yourself. This was not the life I wanted for you, but then the deed has been done, and I'm glad you have learned your lesson. All that is left is planning the way forward. Obviously, you cannot do much in your condition, so you'll have to wait till the baby is born. While you wait, I want you to ponder upon all the things you have been through and think about how you want your life to turn out. Now you are a mother. You must find a way to be responsible for your children. I will support you because you are still my child and I still want what is best for you." Amara thanked her mother with all sincerity for giving her a second chance. She had learned the hard way and promised to do her best to be a good daughter to her mother and a good mother to her children. She would go back to school no matter what it took and build a good life for herself. Someday, she would have the chance to appreciate Mama Orojo for making her see reasons to live and giving her the courage she lacked to return home where she was truly loved. Hey lovers, thank you for listening to this story. If you're new here, welcome to our community. I hope you enjoyed listening to this story as much as I enjoyed creating it. If you have not done so already, please hit the subscribe button. And to support the growth of our community, give this video a big thumbs up. If you have learned something, please let us know in the comment section. If you know someone who needs to hear this story, do not hesitate to share. I'll take my leave now, but I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.